busy month of cool
Yeah.
guests, and I figured we should, check back in, and it's
Hi, we're
also, just give us a little bit of consolidation of some of the cool stuff we've talked about. Also, it is today's Bell Let's Talk Day.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if you say Happy Bell Let's Talk Day, but
I don't know. I guess
Happy Bell Let's Talk Day. I don't know. It's becoming a really positive thing, so we'll
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll say happy.
I mean, it's something to. It's a huge campaign for building awareness around mental health, right?
Yeah, which is great.
I forget what the exact details are. It's it's 5 or 10 cents for every text that's sent today.
Yeah, there's something I actually don't know because I've never engaged in it. Besides posting and seeing people's posts and whatever.
Yeah.
But there's something, I think 10 cents sounds right. I know there's there's something that is, and where does it go? Research? Where does it go? Where's the money go? Belle, what are you doing?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I actually don't know.
I mean, isn't that always the question when it comes to fundraising or whatever you want to call it, or charities?
Yeah.
Things.
Well, hopefully it goes somewhere.
I think it goes to research.
Or even CAMH would be cool.
Yeah. And I think I think they also do something for if you use their hashtag on social media. I believe that they do something with that.
We know a lot about this.
Well,
I'll have to look into it.
All we know is
but yes.
It's related to mental health awareness, and that's the important point.
That is, yes, I agree.
And that they've sort of built a whole day around it is powerureful stuff.
Yeah, how it's not that, I think 5 years old maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah, I remember when it first came out. That's it just it was really intense for a lot of people.
Yeah, because
it was almost like a coming out story for everyone. With and I don't mean to use the queer language in vain way, and I don't know if that's the case, but I remember it being really intense, and a lot of people who quote unquote you didn't expect would say things or post things or reveal things, and it became really validating. But I remember the first year was just whoa, man, there's a lot coming out of the closet here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
that's true. It's I mean, it's like that. It's interesting, right? Social media has kind of lifted that barrier for a lot of different things.
True.
So it's you can either and others that we haven't really done the vulnerability episode, but we've got we've definitely touched on Brene Brown quite a bit, because she's a pretty powerful voice in the area of being yourself and
she kind of came around
vulnerability
that time too, I would say.
I think
that she blew up with her shame talks and her shame and blame and vulnerability, all these things that really do tie in.
Yeah, it's probably that. Maybe that's. I'm sure there's a, if we're looking at the corporate side of it, there's probably Belle's oh, let's get on this right now because it's the trendy thing, and we'll capitalize on it, and our name will be associated with it.
Dirty people.
Hopefully, I think Sai and I kind of got into that when we were talking about so go back and listen to the episode from December with Sai and I, because he studies social enterprise.
Okay.
And I asked him the question, what are his thoughts on just for profit businesses? And essentially, long story short, he was going on about how the world and the way the business kind of the big people and the big names in business have definitely shifted their. It's always been about maximizing the value to the shareholders, but now it's more it's now agreed upon that it should be maximizing stakeholder, which is stakeholder being the people, the consumer, the people in it, and not just the ones that have their names, or that they're getting the dividends from the profits and all that
That's
stuff.
That's good. That's funny. We talked about that in my psychology of evil class a little bit, about how corporate evil is a real thing. But it's funny because what we boiled it down to, and I would say maybe even the same case with Belle, we're assuming a lot here, but you know, it seems evil if they're just trying to get money for this stuff.
Yeah.
But somewhere down the line, like, there's got to have been that one person who spoke up and was like, hey, like, I know someone, or I am really struggling with this issue. Like, we are a big name. How can we help? Like, there's got to have been. I like to believe in people. I like to believe the world's a good place still. Yep. I get that from my dog. And but I'm hoping that's the case, that there was heart behind it. And the problem is it does snowball into this whole, you know, consumption thing. But it's nice to hear that the trends are changing. That's good. That's positive.
Yeah. And I think, like, something that I agree with on this case is, if at the end of the day it is doing positive, then that's all that matters. If, you know, people have to run their businesses and stuff.
Well, exactly. And that's not evil.
No.
Right? That's not, at the end of the day. Yeah. We just like to start wars as you know, Western people.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's got to have, like, their say, their opinion. For sure. Yeah. But with, like, this sort of, I think a couple of things to go off of, you know, January, the end of January tends to be a time where people start losing that momentum from the resolutions.
January 20th was Blue Monday. Yeah. That was, statistically the most depressed day of the year. Okay. That happened not long ago. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then it's kind of a from there, right?
Yeah, and especially in our area, it's been very gloomy lately.
This is not fun winter.
I've been talking to a couple of, like, doctors and other people in the area saying, like, they don't know what it is, but, like, illnesses are just lingering much longer.
Yeah. People my gosh. Yeah. Like, I know people who've had pneumonia for, like, 6 months now. Like, it's just crazy. Like, that's exaggerating, but way too long. So I'm scared to get sick because I don't want to stay sick.
Yeah. And I think part of it definitely has to do with, like, we haven't had a lot of sunny days.
It's not been a nice winter. Like, it's either been, you know, if it is mild, it rains and then that freezes. Yeah. So you can't really go outside. You can. But you're going to be cold and wet and then eventually icicle. But, and on the days that it's been kind of sunny, it's been like minus 40. So, or whatever, minus 20, whatever. So that doesn't help at all. I've also heard, this is, like, totally a side note to do with, like, not so much the weather, but Peterborough and sickness is that, like, because it used to be a swamp. Oh. And so that's why, like, there's kind of a dip downtown is in this, like, lower area, and then the rest of the town is above it. Like, it's just a big valley. And so there was so much marshland around here before everyone settled and ruined it all. that like, dampness kind of keeps viruses, like, marinating. Okay. And because it's been a bit warm here, I wonder if that's, like, not helping people.
Probably.
Because that, like, humans, and then back to mental health, like, humans fight for consistency. Like, that's what the human body does. It always wants homeostasis, right? And because the weather's been so up and down, like, we can't really settle into winter and have a routine. At least in terms of, like, your outdoor activities or your stress levels. So that's not helpful.
Makes sense.
But there's also, like, it's so, I don't know, there's so many theories, because I took a cultural psychology class, and, like, people in the East don't care about the weather. Like, it doesn't affect them. The sun is, like, not their be-all, end-all. It's more about, like, internal stuff, where we, in the Western side of the world, look at more external stuff, aka, like, the sun does make an impact on us. But I always wonder, like, can we then condition ourselves for internal happiness?
That's
can we
super
do that?
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, just something running off of that, something that we could probably, like, figure out fairly easily, or my hypothesis is, you know, Eastern diets tend to be way better than this Westernized, like, processed diet, which means they're probably getting more of those nutrients, including, like, vitamin D and
true.
Actually, vitamin D only comes from
mushrooms.
Does it come from mushrooms?
Funny enough, they grow in the dark, but they're the one thing you can get vitamin D from, and sheep liver or something weird like that. Okay, yeah, because I mean, we add it to, like, our milk and stuff, so that's
I went way off and was wrong there, but interesting that maybe like if there's certain mushrooms in the diet, but even the other things, like it's not, vitamin D is not the be all end all, right?
No, I can tell you that because I've been dabbling with tanning and it hasn't changed my seasonal depression.
Oh, okay.
Like I was like, maybe this will help.
You know, there's also usually it requires like a massive dose of vitamin D to correct, right? And a lot of people that are susceptible to like more seasonal depression also tend to have a harder time getting their blood levels of vitamin D up.
Right.
So you need like that 10,000 IUs of D3 a day for like a week or 2 weeks to actually boost it up throughout the winter season. So tanning might not be like enough.
It's not.
It might require like the additional supplementation of it as well.
Probably, hey?
But yeah, maybe it's not just that too, right? And we're also, it could be like maybe they're getting outside more, you know, they're working on their farms and
nature. But they also don't get winter. Like they get sun and they get rain.
Depends on
where we are. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm like right in India right now in my brain. Like it's at least over in like East Asia, it's mostly, you know, and that's what I'm kind of thinking of is the culture that I know that like doesn't get bothered by
the weather,
the sun, like it doesn't dictate their mental health, statistically at least.
Yeah.
It's they get rain, they get sun, and like the rain's kind of brutal, but you know their bones don't get as cold as ours. I don't think. Yeah. I like to play the victim there because I'm sure they get cold.
Sure.
It's all perspective, but
yeah, that's also like. I mean, a lot of that, you know, ties once again into sort of Western society, like inflammation being chronic and all that stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. I guarantee you your theory on diet in some capacity is important to that factor.
Probably.
There you go. Tip number 1, guys. Eat well. Eat well if you're not feeling great.
Yeah, tip number 1. I also like just the idea of it coming from internally rather than being all dictated externally. I think that's like that's the key to it all.
Totally.
When it comes to like, let's say kind of like the quote unquote practicing positivity, right? Because a lot of our guests, but also a lot of our listeners, and I think a lot of podcasters, like people that just like podcasts in general, they're trying to accomplish something in their lives, right? It's a pretty highly driven niche, like group of people.
All us nerds found a little club to hang out in. It's good.
Just getting like, you know, pumped up in our heads with our tunes or our like the headphones on, just pumping information into our brains and stuff is I mean there's entertaining ones like the serial or whatever it is, the ones
or like every now and then Joe Rogan will just throw you right off, and it's just
it's hilarious ones.
Oh my gosh, you guys should all, if you want a good laugh and you aren't offended easily, go listen to Joe Rogan. I think it's episode 1410. It could be 4, it could be 5. I don't know. It's the one that's called Sober October Update, and it is ridiculous. It was like 3 hours of just poop stories. It was amazing. So if you guys need to laugh, go there.
I also love any episode where he's got Joey Diaz on. They're just like old friends, but Joey is so funny.
There was 2 of his old friends here, like just comedian friends.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Joey though. Ari and someone else.
Ari Shafir and
I can't remember the other guy's name.
It'll probably come to me. It doesn't really. Matter. They're the guys that they always do the Sober October challenge together.
Yep.
And and that's the fun part about Joe Rogan is he's got this good balance of episodes that'll just make you laugh because he's at
the end of the day he's a funny guy,
and he's got a lot of friends in comedy, so he does a lot of those episodes, and then it's pretty neat how he's like made that niche, right? He can do the comedy. He does Joe
Rogan can do anything.
Yeah, he does the MMA episodes. Yeah, which I don't often listen to because it's not something that I'm super interested in anymore. I used to be way into that, but and then he's got like the cool scientists and other just amazing guests to listen to learn something new.
He had Ash Dykes. Do you know that name?
Not really.
Irish dude or Welsh or whatever.
Oh, I was intending to listen to that just because I know
Yeah.
his accent's going to be great to listen to.
He made everything sound so intense. Even like he's got this like really cool dude drawl too,
Sure.
so it's not just his accent, it's like that. Yeah, it's good though.
I've downloaded that one to listen to because I'm like, oh, this is going to be good no matter what it's about.
Yeah, oh, it's cool. No, he like walked 1,000,000 miles or what, like 4,000 miles along the longest or third longest river, I think, in Asia. Took him 352 days, so he tells a story with that.
That's
it's
great.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. But yeah, so back to
Sorry,
it's okay. No, it's all good. Back to the idea that most people listening are highly driven, and especially like as we talked about, like the shifting of corporations and everything. Whether you're a business person or you're just like a brand in and of yourself, you know, an individual that's trying to accomplish things.
Yep.
There's almost always a component of wanting to help people in some way or another.
Always. That's what business is for.
Yeah. You're trying to contribute in some way or another. Yeah. And really like the key to long-term success with that is staying positive in the present moment.
Yeah.
And so I think like we've heard, I'm actually the vlog episode or whatever, the mini video that I'm putting out at the end of the week is about some of the tips that we've learned lately. But I also want to dive into something else because I just read this book that's really I didn't know what I was gonna think, but because I still am not completely sold on the guy, but that's okay because the book was actually really great.
Okay.
It's, so I don't know if you've heard of Mind Valley before.
No.
It's like an online course and things around personal development.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like spiritual aspects to it, and then sort of businessy things, and a lot of meditation. So Vishen Lakhiani, who created this company,
I know the name.
Yeah, he's done a TED Talk, but he's also like a meditation instructor. I hadn't really heard of him before I started. I think it was a TED Talk that I ran into that was really interesting.
Okay.
And so he teaches, or he wrote this book called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind.
Okay.
And it's really cool. Like he's somebody that's got 20 years of meditation sort of experience. The other thing that I found very intriguing is he comes from a computer engineering or a computer science background. So he's kind of got that like...
Typically that makes good like neuroscientists.
Yeah, he's got that hacker mentality about him.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because it flips the script on a lot of the things that we stick to because they're the traditional route. And so even the way he's got something called the 6-phase meditation. Okay. And so he's actually got it on... He's got another app called Omvana, which is apparently one of the most popular meditation apps in the world. I hadn't heard of that either before. I mean, everybody that launches something, it's the world's best.
It's the best one,
it's the best in the world,
it might be the best, but it doesn't mean it's the most popular. Yeah. I'd give Headspace to that title, but...
Yeah. Headspace and Calm's another close second, probably. Sam Harris is doing good things too, though.
Everyone's out there doing their part for sure.
But so Omvana is, maybe it's more popular overseas or whatever. Yeah, and that's why it's the world's most popular. But he's got this 6-phase meditation he does, and he shares the full thing. There's a couple of, I think he did like a sort of TED Talk at Google where he goes through the whole practice, but it's also for free on his meditation app to check out what it is. And I think it's really useful for a lot of listeners, a lot of people that are highly driven have a hard time doing the traditional just sit and try to clear your mind meditation. Yeah. And because of that, he went about creating this one that I'm still skeptical on the claim that, he says that it's sort of meditation for the modern era. So it supercharges all these things that you get from years of traditional meditation practice. But I've been really enjoying doing it. So there is something behind it. And it ties into a lot of the day-to-day practices that we like to talk about anyway. So I'm going to kind of quickly break down like the different components of it, because it's a lot of, you know, what we've talked about, and also these are some of like the key things that I think are really important for practicing positivity on a daily basis. So the first, and he goes through them really quickly, which I think is maybe some of the downside to it, because I don't think you actually, it is kind of, you do kind of rush through it. And I think that a lot of people would benefit from sticking on it. So either, you know, it's distracting to pause a guided meditation to try to do that. So once you learn the actual 6 steps to this practice, it's probably better to do it on your own, at your own pace a little bit too, so that you're actually getting a little bit more out of it. But step 1 is practicing compassion. So the idea is to first kind of think of somebody or even a pet that like fills you with love, right? Get into that happiness state. And because that's one of the things that we can really do to,
it's so easy,
instantly get into more of a positive mindset
so quickly,
is practicing compassion. And then from there, envisioning it extending from yourself to gradually to the entire world.
Right.
So, you know, sending your love out to the entire world.
Cool.
Is actually it's a very
That's
quick
neat.
hack to get you into a positive state of mind.
Yeah.
And doesn't take a whole lot of time. The second step is the gratitude practice, which is very similar to kind of the one that, you know, I like to talk about, sort of the past, present, future gratitude, because I think, you know, if you can't always just think of the things in the past, because we've got goals that we want to achieve in the future. But if we're also just too focused on the future, we're not appreciative for the present moment either. Yeah. And so kind of going from that, it's evolved his method. He's describes it in a few different ways. But he does talk about things in more of the immediate, like think about the past 24 hours or 48 hours, things that you're grateful for. I like to also extend it further back to some of those like highlight moments, because then you're in an even higher state of positivity. Cool. If you're thinking of, you know, like a friend's wedding that was or whatever it is, the first time you met your pet, whatever. Yeah. The things that really like brighten you up. And then thinking of things that you're grateful for, either for like your business or your like work life, is a really useful thing, especially for people that are in kind of that corporate structure and not always happy with their job. Yeah. You can always think of things that are positive.
There's always something if you try.
Yeah, if you try. Yeah. And that actually builds up resilience against those negative things. Because
practicing negativity is really easy. But you get stuck. Like, it's such a loop. Yeah.
And then
that's so good.
He doesn't really... And then actually, the other part, so he doesn't do much of the future, because there's another section which is envisioning the future anyway. Cool. So it's not part of like the gratitude practice per se, but things that you're grateful for about yourself, which I've started to incorporate after this as well. You know, I didn't always practice that as much. And I think that that's another very easy positive psychology hack.
It's really important too.
That's like it's like a self-esteem boost, or like a just like a positivity boost. To be grateful for things about yourself. Exactly. Right.
As long as you can get real with yourself, right, and not like because some people, for me, I shouldn't say some people. For me, it's hard for me to like drop my ego and be like falsely humble, where it's just like, oh, I don't know. It's like, no, there's things about myself that I really enjoy. Yeah. Like it's good to drop that act and just
that's it's an interesting thing. You know, it actually, I think one of the first times it took a long time for me to get to the point of actually feeling like whatever that is, like getting over it's not ego to feel good about yourself. If you're
it's confidence.
If you're real, confidence.
It's just straight up confidence.
Yes, that's the word. And it took a very long time for me to get to that point. And I remember it was when I was working at Queen's, and my boss at the time was like, I was just about to like get the promotion to being like the manager. Yeah. and she was getting a promotion to like the one of like the managers of the campus. There's several for the different divisions, and like I've always been sort of somebody that doesn't like bolster myself up with like that confident that I'm pretty awesome. But it was something that she was also talking about, how like we're actually pretty badass kind of thing, and I was like, yeah, you're right, and it takes off from there. I don't think I have all the answers on how to like get to that point in the first place, other than it takes time.
It's so personal. Yeah, it's so personal, and it's just that self-awareness again, like knowing what your strengths are and being able to celebrate it. And like, I don't necessarily like the word unique, because I have this deep belief inside of me that no one's that special. But I think it's important to know what, I guess, sets you apart, or what highlights you as a person, because we all have things we're good at and we all have things that we're not good at. And knowing that will direct you towards a path that's like more stable for yourself, knowing where you fit, right? So that's important. Yeah. One of the biggest things I say with kind of this confidence thing, and this even in business, is like, you have to protect your confidence. And that is a really good practice for doing that. Because if you let people like dive bomb in and ruin your confidence, you are going down real fast. So if you can find practices, even just like this, to keep your confidence protected and keep knowing yourself, that's super important. Yeah. Is this the next step? You're smiling like I'm on to something. Oh, that's why.
No, it's so this does tie into the next step. Okay. And it's kind of funny because so I guess because Vishen's like comes from this hacker background or whatever, he makes up a bunch of words in the book. Like, he invents words.
Is he a PhD?
No.
Oh, he can't do that then.
He did he? I think he finished. I forget what level. I think he finished school, but he didn't like it or whatever. So he makes up a bunch of words in the book.
I would struggle with that a lot.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
I got over it.
Okay. I think that's
because I still, like, once again, I'm not entirely sure, because at one point, like, it's a weird thing. He talks about, one of his kids has Asperger's. Okay. And when he noticed things were different about him, he actually, at the doctor his son was being diagnosed, and they're like, oh, you also have Asperger's. And he mentions it once in the front of the book, but the way he like does all this stuff and these meditations and things, he says that he's essentially like figured out the way, which is possible, to like treat his Asperger's with learning about all these different positive psychology skills and building up like this more what would you call that, emotional intelligence. It's possible. I'm a little bit unsure, because he only mentions it once in the book, and then it's not like a recurring theme. But then he also goes back and says he grew up as a kid. He grew up as a kid with autism. But he didn't figure that out until he was like middle aged, like 30s or more.
Maybe just looking back, he realized
it's possible.
He had it. Yeah.
I'm just
interesting. Just unclear, hey?
I'm just not sure. It might. I'm just not sure. Anyway, that's why I'm a little bit skeptical about his personality and if he's telling the truth or if he's just like full of himself. Because some people think that he's very full of himself, and I think it was just, you have to tell the story from your own perspective in order to write a good book.
Yeah. In my experience, like, people with Asperger's is like they spend a lot of time in their heads because they have a lot of time to spend in their heads, only because their brains go like super speed. So he might just know himself real good, Maybe. Like I've only ever, and maybe I'm just meeting people who I don't like the word functional, but who live a really stable life and know how to manage their struggles. Maybe that's just who I'm surrounded with. I don't know.
Sure.
But
yeah, so either way, he's got an interesting mindset, being like this sort of like engineer, like analytical person that's then gone into the spiritual and meditation realm, and so it's refreshing. it's a different take on it.
Yeah.
He makes these words up because like he's sort of into like hacking the way the world works. And so anyway, you were talking about building yourself up with confidence
protecting your confidence
to avoid the impact of negativity around you. And this isn't a word he made up, but he found it on one of the adventures he was on with doing like a sort of, I think they called it 40 years of Zen. Okay. It was this camp, or I don't know if camp's the right word. It was this like
retreat, maybe?
Yeah, like a retreat that was using neurofeedback as a way to show you exactly what kind of thoughts would train your brain to get into like alpha,
that's cool,
beta,
actually.
theta, delta brainwave states.
Yeah. Damn, that's a way to hack.
Yeah, and Dave Asprey was part of it. And all that.
Of course he was.
And so he came across this word called that he really likes, that he then writes a whole chapter on in the book or whatever, called it's unfuckwithable.
Oh, I've heard that word before. Is that him? Isn't there a book called that? I feel like everyone's throwing the word fuck in.
Yeah, I know.
Or maybe it was I think I might have just heard him on a podcast and he said that.
Yeah, it's one of the words he uses a lot.
It's a mouthful.
It is, definitely. But so the third step of this meditation is what has been found to be the most effective way to make yourself unfuckwithable.
Right.
Which is forgiveness.
As opposed to fuckwithable.
Sure. Yeah. Or as opposed to like having your self-esteem, like trashed by things. And it's the practice of forgiveness.
Forgiveness of self, of people, just in general.
Just in general.
Okay.
It mostly whatever you need to forgive, really. So it may be things, and because I've been doing this meditation for a couple of weeks, almost daily. Yeah, daily. Cool. I haven't missed a day. So just because it's a different take on it. And like I said, it's structured, and I find that, I've been meditating a long time, but sometimes I do get off track, and then I'm like, oh wait, I'm thinking about stuff. Yeah. And I was supposed to have my mind clear.
Yeah.
And once again, the reason is Vishen's saying like this sort of structured meditation that's going through these different phases is doing things to your brain that like just kind of like sitting in and doing the traditional no thought. It takes years to kind of like have it all coalesce, whereas this is like a quicker hack to it. Sure. And so forgiveness, it could be something that you need to forgive yourself for, but you've done these first two stages where your sort of positivity is really high. And a lot of it is like forgiving other people. So, you're envisioning the actual action and letting yourself build up those emotions again for just like 60 seconds or whatever, just to feel it. And then letting go of it. So, I think like the phrase that he usually says is like, I forgive you and I ask you to forgive me. Okay. Right? And envisioning that forgiveness. And they don't necessarily, as long as you're letting go of it, it doesn't have to be forgiveness. And it also, he's saying, because, he's been researching this stuff for 20 years or whatever, and sharing like the wisdom of other people. The other person doesn't have to be something that ever comes about in the real world, as long as you're vividly.
Sometimes I also believe it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, don't go chase down that person from 10 years ago in your life. Like, that's just going to stir up things.
Sometimes it may not, or it may be your past self that you're forgetting too. And so then you can't chase them down.
Exactly. It's all, ultimately, this sounds against what a lot of people say, but ultimately, like, it's all about you. It really is. Is like your experience is what you live out, right? And your interactions with people is like you've done that, you've participated in that. So when it comes to forgiving people and quarrels and that kind of a thing too, if it's like a partner or a friendship that you need to communicate with, do it. But at the end of the day, like a conversation might not take that feeling out of your heart. Yeah, like that's about you.
Yeah. And I like that, because the other thing that really resonated with me from this book, which is why I thought it was valuable to share this, you know, being kind of that lull in energy levels for the end of January, and with Let's Talk Day being about like raising up mental health. If you can't be positive and support yourself, you know, you've got to kind of that the oxygen mask analogy. You've got to take care of yourself first if you're going to be able to help other people. You've got to be positive if you're going to be able to do this long-term thing that's going to make an impact on other people as well. And so that's where, this, it's an interesting thing. I haven't done like the whole, I don't know. It's probably is it part of like the loving kindness meditations? I always forget like what, but anyway, like the forgiveness thing's something new to me that's unique and interesting.
It is a really like Eastern kind of, I think, is it part of Buddhism? I don't know, forgiveness is a trendy word anyway in like the Eastern religions. Yeah. And like for good reason. Yeah. You know, it helps you let go of anything sort of, I've been using the word goopy a lot lately, just like goopy shit that's inside you. Toxic stuff. Yeah. It does help. I find I kind of roll my eyes at it when people are like, practice forgiveness. But I do see the value of it. It's just my own immersion in religion that I'm like, oh, come on. Just because forgiveness meant different things in my personal experience. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why, you know, a lot of this stuff, it was definitely like intriguing to me in the way that he approached all of it, being from, you know, growing up in Hinduism and starting to like question the word that is at the start of the book that he made up is brules, which stands for bullshit rules, which is supposed to be all about it is
you can't see my face if you're listening right now, but I don't like that. I can't.
I had a hard time
scoffing
with it. And he capitalizes it throughout the whole book.
Wait, what does it mean again? I can't even focus on that.
Bullshit rules.
Oh, fuck that. Okay. You know what though? That's ironic because that's what the word is, breaking bullshit rules of not making words up. That's just, that's true. I don't know. I'm a rigid person. Let's stay by the book, man. Yeah, just say the word. You're not special. Oh, anyway, I'm gonna look past that while you continue talking.
For sure.
I'm rubbing my between my eyebrows. Just
that's hilarious. But anyway, he like realized like he wanted to be able to like experience or whatever, practice the feelings of different religions instead of being stuck in one just because that's the culture you grew up in and all of that stuff. I'm on board with that. And so, you know, maybe this is where he does have Asperger's if he's okay with making up words and stuff just to like.
Well, I don't know if you can classify that as an Asperger's trait.
I don't know. It's something unique about him. That's why I think people said like he's very narcissistic.
Interesting. It seems like he wants to ruffle some feathers around, which is, you know what, I really do. I struggle with the feather rufflers, but I appreciate them because I think that we need people in this world to get us out of our comfort zone and get us out of our rigid ways. Yeah. Like in the very least, just to be able to analyze our response to it, right? Where it's like, why did that bother me so much? Like, why? Like, why did the word brules bother me so much? And for me, I'm just like, who is he that he can do that?
I almost didn't read the book.
I wouldn't have. I 100% would have closed the book.
Because of all these, when he said like, when it starts off in the introduction saying, I made up 6 or 7 words.
At least he braces you for book it.
Because there wasn't a word that properly described what I was trying to get out. It's like he's Shakespeare.
Yeah, there we go. I bet you Shakespeare in his alive time in this world, everyone didn't really like either.
Probably.
I'm not sure I really care for him now, but I know that a lot of people do. So who knows?
Anyway, and then the second half of the practice.
Sorry, continue.
No worries. The first, and this is another kind of key part to what I wanted to get into with the type of people listening to podcasts and mental health and everything. So the next one is looking at your future goals 3 years in the future and envisioning it in great detail, which once again, I think is why it takes sometimes longer than the amount of time he gives you in the practice, because it's pretty quick. But, you can look at a few aspects instead of all of the things that you want to envision, and maybe cycle through them all and like envision what your accomplishments look like. And he encourages people to, that the dream goal idea that I talk about, set your standards high.
Yeah.
Like he likes to use, I like a different number than 3 years, but he says people underestimate what they can do in 3 years, but overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year.
I'm a fucking cynic today. I'm like, is any of this content his? Isn't that Tony Robbins?
It is Tony. That is that is a Tony Robbins. Tony usually says 10 years though.
Does he say that? Okay.
He says either 10 or 5, depending on how amped up he is.
Got it.
Yeah, but and he's spent time with Tony Robbins and all that. So
Interesting.
I guess
I don't mean to beat this guy.
Yeah, no, it's okay. The question,
like,
it begs
everyone
the
says
question.
this stuff.
Yeah, everybody does say this stuff.
Yeah,
and I think the reason that it resonated was it was pieced together in a unique way. I mean, we always have the argument like there's no new ideas in the world. It's just how you kind of repackage it for your own purposes.
That's
so
fair.
It is something that definitely is Tony Robbins-esque.
Yeah.
But envisioning the future and even that's like something that Tony's talked about a lot too. But being very like clear on it. The next step though, I think is just as important, which is envisioning your perfect day in like the present moment. And so the more that you kind of do that, like the short-term things, like what's my morning look like, what's my morning routine, envisioning like that business lunch, going home at the end of the day and what you're going to do, and then going off to sleep and having like the perfect sleep. The stuff in the present moment is kind of what I was talking about in the like short video, and condensing what some of our guests have talked about this month, the things that they do to practice positivity, because it's once again we've got to be happy and content in the present moment in order to see that long-term goal fulfilled. And so that's where I think a lot of people struggle if they're in that mindset of achieving big things. Is you're always there's sort of a present day like depression or anxiety, because it's that future self that you're always looking forward to, that you're not content with where you're at currently.
That's huge.
And it's the balance there is really important. And then the final step is something that I have a hard time wrapping my head around.
Okay, lay it on me.
It's the blessing. And so he encourages you to envision some sort of higher power, even if you're not religious or spiritual, and sort of embrace it as helping you to make all this stuff that you've envisioned for yourself in the present and the future come true.
I need more. Just the idea that like you have a helping hand in this, like you're not alone. Is that the idea, or just like this force is coming through to do that?
A little bit of any of that. It's
interesting.
Whatever you interpret it as.
Sure.
And so it's funny. I want to see how you react to this. So
I'm spicy today, so you can.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something probably rude.
So, I can't recall if he actually believes in like a god per se.
Sure.
But he envisions himself fist bumping with this higher power.
I'm just trying to save my own face and how I respond to things, but now I'm being a psychologist and saying this narcissistic, like, oh, so he thinks he's level with higher power.
Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe some of this like narcissism.
Why?
Stuff
So tell me, like, why does he fist bump? Why does he like? What does that do for him?
It's
just like, yeah, man, we did this.
Yeah, I don't know if he really explains.
I don't understand that.
We'd have to tweet him or something.
Yeah, what's up, man? Why are you fist bumping whoever you're fist bumping?
Yeah,
interesting.
I think because he just seems to Yeah, he wants to like ruffle feathers.
Just working. I don't even read the book.
He wants to just do things differently than everybody else does. Whether it's if you're practicing spirituality, you know, everything's got to be very like graceful and traditional and
yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate the like.
I don't have a perfect answer other than you know okay. he's quirky and unique.
Interesting. Fist bumping. Like that throws me off. To me, I'm just like.
It threw me off too. I'm like, well, I don't know. Because once again,
I guess it depends on like how you visualize a higher power. Like for me, I don't personalize it. Like I don't make it like
anthropomorphized, right?
Yeah, like I don't turn it into a being. Yeah. For me, it's more like I believe that love is the same thing that everyone talks about as God or Allah or whatever, right? Like I really do believe that love is the exact same force, and we've just kind of made it into this man in the sky. But it's like the idea is that like it's something that binds us together. It's something that overrides a lot of shit. Yeah. Like, and that's kind of I think what we're whatever something sparked it there, but here we go, sparked in my own brain. Higher power. It's a power, force, whatever that can alter your state because it is above you in the sense that it's not better than you. It's not like the dictator thing that a lot of people seem to make it out to be. Yeah. And just disclaimer, this is my belief. I don't have to, it's not right or wrong. But I think that it has the ability to alter your state. And that's that whole idea of like love, whether it's from an animal or a human or a friendship or your family or whatever. Like there's so many different kinds of love, but I really do believe that like that is the power that can change. Yeah. I'm not going to fist bump it. Because I can't. It's not a like. Well,
and he doesn't suggest that you do the exact same things as him, right?
It's just interesting because
I think I forget the exact reason. So the reason that he does the 6th step is, I think because there's like there's some sort of reason as far as it helping to give you like I don't know a sense of like extra confidence boost if you like have this sort of like faith, right? It's you know with I tend to resonate more with like the Stoic amor fati, right? Okay. A love of fate, and just kind of like whatever that means, whether it's that you're envisioning that you can like, you know, the Stoic idea more along the lines of you just have to accept things as they are. I also kind of like the balance of just like having some like that aggression to like force fate, right? Yeah, like force things in your favor. Yeah.
I think I definitely I'm somewhere in the middle of that where I'm just like, yeah, you can't force yourself into a box you're not going to fit in. Yeah. Like. So if we want to call that fate, you know, it's going to spit you back out because you're not right for that. So I agree with that. And then I was just going to say, like, I understand the blessing portion of that, like that 6th step. I understand why it's there. Yeah. I just don't think his style is my style. Like for me in my practices of meditation and journaling and whatever I do, if I'm in a place of struggle, something I repeat over and over and over again until I believe it is only love is real. So all these things that like my anxiety, my depression, my anything that's like really, really rocking my boat that day, because it can really tip me over if I'm not careful, is just saying like none of this is actually real. Like only love is real. This is the thing that has stood the test of time over humanity. No one can tell me that's not true. Like I don't care what religion, what belief, like we all believe in love. So to me that's that unifying force. That's the real thing.
And so you know, as you mentioned that, I think that's why like just from my experience of practicing like these 6 steps in this kind of unique meditation lately, the feeling for that final step is very similar to me to that feeling in the first step of compassion. That's kind of, to me, that's what I was seeing, is it comes kind of full circle where it's just like, okay, nice. I think maybe he just had to call it something differently so that he could actually make it 6 steps. I like the idea of a circle. I appreciate that, because then you finish strong and feel good about where you finished. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting dude, though. Interesting dude. Yeah, he's Absolutely.
Yeah. Something that I keep seeming to want to say, and I'll just say it because I don't know where it fits in with this, is like, I guess just with the talk of mental health and with the talk even of like his Asperger's, or like, hi, I'm depressed all the time, like whatever you have, I really do believe that the people who struggle a lot with mental health issues, which is everyone at some point in your life, are meant to contribute to this world. Like, these are the people who have this unique lens. You're not in this, like, 9-to-5 routine, happy, white picket fence life. You see outside of it, which means you catch the bullshit, which means you see art from a different, like, from a better understanding, which means you can contribute to art, which means that you can bring beauty to the world. Like, I really do believe that the people who are brave enough to explore their mental health issues can use them for better, and can bring things to this world that people who don't struggle with won't see ever.
Yeah.
So this guy with, if it is, driven by his Asperger's, we'll say, I don't know, I can't speak for it. I mean, his whole life probably is, because he has it. He's not a victim to it.
No.
But he has it. He has this unique lens that he can bring to the world.
Yeah.
Like, how great is that? So I think pretty much what I'm getting at here is, like, any of you listeners, or, like, I say this to myself all the time because I struggle with a lot of annoying stuff in my own brain. Just, like, dive into it a bit.
Yeah.
Not in the dark side. Not, like, don't spiral if you can. I know it's easier said than done. Like, but don't let your loop in your brain. For me, it's depression, so that's kind of where I go, where it's just like, oh, woe is me, and you get in this whole, like, Eeyore, no one understands me state, which is far from true. I'm not that special. But, like, knowing that, for me, especially in the winter, my depression allows me to write more. And it allows me to sing more. And it allows me to play guitar more. Because these are the things that, like, make my heart open up a little bit more. And then art feels a lot more meaningful. Yeah. Which is why a lot of, like, songs are about breakups and, like, all, like, country songs or whatever. Like, you're connecting to it, just being like, this hits you in a different way, and it stems from people's sadness, or it stems from people's anxiety. Like, look at, who is it? Sia has made a whole career based on her, like, extreme anxiety. She's a pop singer.
Yeah, no, I know who she is. I wasn't aware of that aspect of her
she's
story.
Pushed past it, but it's made her so unique, and that's why she wears all these crazy sunglasses, or, like, sometimes stands backwards, is because she can't handle the crowd. Like, it freaks her out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But we've made it this cool thing that she does. Huh. So this is, like, I guess this is kind of the point that I'm getting at, is, like, all these people, like, it is a gift. Yep. If you can manage it, like, go get help. Like, I'm not saying, like, good for you for being really sad all the time, or feeling manic, or impulsively spending, or, like, but what I am saying is, like, there is a nugget inside of there that you could really use to make your impact on the world. And that's what's special. So that's, even with this guy, like, he's definitely using his brilliance in some capacity. Like, obviously he's worked really hard with computer engineering, and now he's working on engineering the mind, and like, that takes a lot of brain power,
for sure, and
a lot of introspection, and a lot of studying. And, like, I do believe, like, there's times in my life where I'm just like, man, wouldn't it be cool to have Asperger's? And this is a really ignorant statement, because I'm just like, they're so brilliant, like, their brains go so fast, and it's so, like, efficient, and that's the goal in this Western world, but it comes at the expense of all these sensory struggles and feeling a lot of chaos in between all that. Just, like, high-speed chaos, which is not ideal. Yeah. But
no, that's such a great point, and that's what I wanted to touch on today. Yeah. And just, like, bringing it back around, all those practices we just talked about throughout this hour are things that you can implement one at a time. You don't have to do it all together. Yeah. Or like, the vlog video is going to cover. It's a recap on the things that Grace talked about.
Snowboarding. Go snowboarding, guys.
Snowboarding. Doing the things you love.
Yeah. Cool.
Alyssa, she mentioned just take 5 minutes to experience, like, bliss. That's all it takes is 5 minutes. Sit in your car if you have to and do that. Yeah. And when Colleen was on, it was talking about breaking those goals down into actionable chunks. And then I also just touched on, like, the gratitude practice that I just mentioned again in the podcast. Those 4 tips are things that like I slanted it towards the resolutions again and kind of like concluding this month of resolution stuff, because if people are starting to veer off course a little bit, you know, that's where it helps to remember that you need to like chunk things down into what's actionable, or envision your present self and what you can kind of do in the present moment to get to your future self that you're also envisioning as something that's maybe bigger than you can believe that you can achieve, but that's kind of part of it too, right? Is giving yourself some of that confidence.
Dreaming is really important, I think. Like, just having the ability to be like, I'm going to be there one day, and have this sense of wonder of like, how amazing would it be? Like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. But even with mental health, like breaking it down to be like, I'm going to feel happy one day. Like, that's one day I'm going to feel this like blissful feeling, and that's going to be great.
But also just, it's very easy to get some of that positivity right away. You know, you're thinking about like the face of a loved one, and really like seeing it, and like, you know, slowly start to creep those corners of your cheeks up, because like we know that it actually like triggers the centers in our brain that make us smile or make us feel better. And just things like that.
I would say, like, just a little disclaimer too, like, it's not going to cure your mental health problems. Like, if you've got a serious mental health issue, like, these things, they are like coping mechanisms in a way, right? Like, they will help soften your day if you let them. Because I know a lot with like, at least the issues I struggle with, and I've got a lot of friends who also have mental health issues. We're all hanging out in this clumsy little party. You get really, like, it's, I guess just everything we talked about, it's really easy to practice negativity. And so it's really, the hardest part is starting like a compassion practice, because it's just like, oh, why is that going to help? That's not going to help. That's not going to change anything. And then you just go about kicking your can, and it's like, it doesn't help. So the first, just like being able to set that aside, even just for a second, and like think of a puppy. Like, these things, it does help. And maybe it will help rewire your brain long term, but also just like go seek support if you need it. And if you can't find it, like, we know resources in town, come talk to us. But it does definitely help the in-between. Like, for me, I go to therapy bi-weekly just because that's what my budget can afford. And the in-between, I have to do stuff like that, because otherwise I'm like, I've got this laundry list of stuff I bring to therapy because I've been negative the whole month. But I think I shared, I can't remember what podcast it was on, but that I was listening to that Elevate the Globe podcast, and they were saying some sort of gratitude practice. They studied it, that like 17 seconds of spending time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was 70. Or was it 17?
So it was 17, but to the point of 68.
That's right. Yes.
If 17 multiplies in 68, whatever the number is, it's like a few rounds. I think it's 5 rounds of 17 seconds.
Right.
But if you think of something, if you commit to 17 seconds of thinking of that thing that makes you happy or brings you joy, but you have to commit to it, like not just spending like, oh yeah, okay, so my dog. Anyway, wait for the clock to go. Like, you have to marinate in it and be there and think of an interaction. And then the 17 seconds is up, you got to switch gears to another thing. And then another thing. And it like helps you spiral positively. Yeah. Where you're just like thinking of all these things that bring you joy. And like, I don't care how busy you are, you have 68 seconds. You really do. And it's worth it. Like so stuff like that definitely really helps.
For sure.
At least the in-betweens of the mental health issues. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we've helped someone in some capacity here, but it's definitely been a good, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about, what's his name again? Vishen?
Vishen.
Sorry, man. I don't know. You and I are two fish in the different oceans or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he seems to have a lot of polarized opinions about him, but some of the best people do.
I was just going to say, and that's what at the end of the day, I appreciate it, because like I said, I really like people who ruffle feathers, because I think it's important to bring alternative perspectives to this world. And that's definitely what he's doing.
For sure.
Yeah. He's breaking the rules. Jeez. I'm going to see, it's got in my head now. I'm going to use that term more often than I want to. So good job. Good job, Vishen.
Yeah. I can't stop thinking about it too now. It's funny. It's strange, right? We don't often see like whole new words that people have like a whole bunch of conviction behind.
Yeah.
But
good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him for holding his head high and not giving a shit about what people think. That's cool. That's that's the goal. Yeah. Really, and maybe that's why it ruffles my feathers so much. Is that like I would love to be in a place where I can just bulldoze through life and feel okay about it. I would really love that.
Yeah. Someday.
We'll see.
Anyway, is there anything else we want to?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Touch on, or is that?
I think just maybe a little, guys, we're getting there with January. We can do it. Practice positivity. I find personally, and my friend group and my community also finds that February is the hardest month of the year because there's not a whole lot to look forward to. Like at least it's short, but it's kind of that like you're waiting for winter to be over.
It's not that it's not that short this year.
No, it's 29 days, right?
And
so
I honestly don't know how I remembered this, but I'm like, something clicked in. Tony Robbins' birthday is on February 29th.
So he gets to turn what, like 7 this year?
Something like that. I think he's turning 60.
Like actually 60, but I wonder how many years he's
actually had a birthday. Yeah, not too many.
Oh, poor guy.
Every 4 years, right?
Yeah, so what is that?
60 divided by 4.
Happy 15th, Tony Robbins. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I was just going to say maybe finding these practices for February would be really important.
For sure.
Finding some gratitude practice or finding something that brings you joy and like committing to doing that at least once a day in February just to keep on trucking.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like what you said about focusing too much on the future sometimes can really lead you astray. And for me, February, it's like we're almost there. Let's just get past it. Mm-hmm. Let's go to March. Let's go to spring. Let's get past this. And then I forget to live in the present moment. And that's why February for me is so grueling.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be some of the theme that we'll touch on
we'll see.
Ourselves and our guests this upcoming month.
I'm doing a yoga challenge if anyone wants to join in.
Cool.
On my Instagram, kelsey.flows. Where every day in February I'm going to I call it yoga because that's like what it most closely represents. Yeah. I do just intuitive movement is really what I call it, where I just let my body move.
Yeah.
And it looks like yoga because it's kind of fluid, and sometimes I'll do like a downward dog here and there. But that really helps me, like it's almost like a somatic therapy, just like let your body move the way it wants to, and it gets all these like creaks and cracks out and that stiffness. So if anyone wants to join in on that.
Cool.
I highly recommend it. Movement for me is how I elevate myself.
Yeah.
So if it is for you too, come on in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean slowly but surely the sun's coming up a little bit earlier. And
it's staying out later. It's so great.
So
we're getting there.
Also get outside.
100%. Yeah. Should probably have said that like way at the beginning of this podcast, but we say it a lot.
Could've. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I feel has made a big impact is even though the weather's up and down, like I've been
don't let it run your life.
No,
get outside. Yeah,
I'm outside most days of the week as much as I can.
Me too. Pouring rain, I'm in the woods still.
Yeah,
mostly because my dog's crazy, but I really do. Yeah, if you need to get outside more, get a crazy dog and commit to it. Yeah, but that really does help too. Just breathing in nature and like. I sometimes, and I know we're closing this podcast and I'm getting on more ideas, but sometimes I even go and like look at the trees for advice, and like that sounds kind of hokey, but it's just the idea that like they withstand all seasons.
For sure.
And they're still trees.
Yeah.
And so like how do they tell their story? Like what keeps them stable, and just watching them bend with the wind instead of resisting it.
Yeah.
But still not breaking. Like it's cool. I like that's how I kind of go and talk to the trees, I always say, because it's just I need to figure out how they do their thing.
Yeah,
and that helps me.
It's really nice. I being sort of like a diehard Tolkien fan. It's like, it's always like connecting with the Ents, right?
Yeah. So there's always magic out there. You just have to go find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was actually Ben Greenfield was just on Tom Bilyeu.
Oh, yeah.
And because he just wrote this massive book that I really want to read, but it's $80. And so I'm like...
That is an expensive book. Is it big?
The manuscript was like 1,400 pages, and he cut it down to... It's 680 pages.
Interesting. Why is it so expensive?
Because he self-published it.
Oh.
Because nobody would publish it for him. So I kind of have a feeling like... Oh, it's good. But it is massive, and it's probably like... glossy covered and stuff. Like I know Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Chef was really expensive because it was like there was all the photos of the food and stuff, and it was like gloss.
Like fancy.
It was fancy, and this
What's the book though?
It's called Boundless.
Okay.
It's essentially like the master guide to biohacking yourself for boundless energy.
Ooh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. So I really am intrigued to get it, but $80 is a lot to buy one book. Yes. So I'm not sure. I'm waiting to see if, and there's no ebook version. Like I picked that up because they're usually like way cheaper.
Yeah.
But the thing that really, like, I've always had my issues with Ben Greenfield because he's like, once again, sort of like Vish and super narcissistic, and coincidentally, he's one of the people that wrote one of the recommendations for the book and stuff.
Interesting.
The what do you call those? Like the plugs or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I know I'm going way off track, but Greenfield was talking on Tom Bilyeu. I didn't know he's got this really unique like spirituality thing that I don't know if it would jive with you or go against
Let's
it.
See. Let's try. Let's open it up.
Well,
I got time.
It's I should reset the video actually.
Sure.
It shut off probably a while ago.
What time is it?
It's just after 9.
All right, that's fine.
Oh, that card's full. I guess we're going without the
audio only.
Audio only for the end of this one. So he's got like this like, because Tom's super like, don't know if you'd call it like atheist. He just doesn't have like any spirituality in him.
He's intense. Yeah, he like really brushes it off real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought Ben Greenfield was like that because he even though he sometimes believes in, he's on like the cutting edge a lot of the research. So some of the things aren't super well supported by science, which is what I always say about Paul Chek too. But they've got this thing about them that's still
there's something magnetic.
There's something about them.
There's truth there in some capacity.
Yeah. But he's got like this belief of like the magic, like he's living, he feels more fulfilled believing that there's like this hero's journey that we're all on. Going back to the hero's journey again. And I thought that like, I don't know, that really resonated with me a lot too, because like I don't subscribe to the traditional religion sort of things, but just kind of having like, once again, it's kind of like that balance of the like the love of fate, the amor fati, and kind of forcing fate, like believing that there's like this destiny, this script of like this story, this hero's journey is really neat to me. And so
I'm on board.
It was fun like hearing that about Ben Greenfield because it kind of developed a new perspective on him.
What does he mean by magic is what I want to know, because magic has so many different like connotations now. Like sometimes I'll use the term magic, and what I mean by that is like my sense of wonder is heightened, like that is magical, and it's because I'm like, wow, that's so cool. But other times like that we're on this quest. Like it's like the life is not just pure chaos. I agree. I think, and
that there's like a quest to be on. And I can't remember if he talked about like afterlife or not. It might have been somebody else, but kind of saying like, you know, because he does all these different drugs to experiment on himself and stuff, and he's always like guinea pig number 1, and he's reached some like blissful states. And he said like, I'd be totally cool if the afterlife was like just floating in a state of like bliss, like that,
psychedelic trip,
but also just enjoying the journey that he's on too.
I was just gonna say, like, why does it even have to be about the afterlife? Because that's living in the future.
You know, it doesn't have. That's kind of his spiritual guide. Is it doesn't have to be about the afterlife.
What if just present life is meant to be purposeful and magical? Like, what if humankind is just this giant art mosaic where it's just like you gotta like hold your weight and do your purpose, whatever that means. Because it's this really beautiful picture around the world of everyone just like feeling great about themselves and doing their thing and helping others. Like, what if just that's to me, that is just the mission of love, where it's just like this force, this higher power, should you want to call it that, is like stringing everyone together to be their best self. And I think that we all can definitely say that there are things that are the best about ourselves and there's things that are the worst. And whether that's like this mission that's been planted in us from something outside of ourselves, or if it's just our own uniqueness, I don't know, but I think I'm on board. I like that.
Yeah. So I thought it was a kind of refreshing take on
I think you can get like hung up on the idea, like if you get too hung up on the idea that you have this like set purpose and you're searching for the meaning of life the whole time, I think you've lost it. I think that you have lost yourself to that, and then you will never find your meaning because you're like too busy looking for something that's in you already. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm not going to jump into that. I think that we should close this off because Flow Spa's opening up. Yeah. But hopefully there's some nuggets in there that help the seasonal strugglers like me and like everyone in Western society. But
I hope so. I think
Happy Bell Let's Talk Day.
Happy Bell Let's Talk Day. All right. We'll talk to everybody again soon.